Release the Kraken!
Greetings, fellow game designers. Ron here at Lame Duck Studios, and we are back with our simple chair. And in this tutorial, we're going to go ahead and start texturing our model. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're inside of our UV layout here. We have our chair, everything's good. Let's go ahead and go to UVs, select our layout, go up to Image, go down to UV Snapshot, and then save these out where they're going to make sense. It's going to save mine right here. I'm going to name it. This is going to be Simple Chair UVs. For the file size, we're going to use 2048 by 2048, so 2048, 2048. The image format, this is really up to you. I'm going to do PNG, and then you're going to do apply and close, or just apply, whichever. And let's go ahead and open this in Photoshop. So I got Photoshop open. Go ahead and hit open. Okay, and then in here, I'm going to go ahead and grab my simple chair UVs. Hit open. There we are. In our layers, let's go ahead and drop in a background so we can actually see what we're doing. So let's go down to, oh, a bunch of new stuff popped up. That's fun. Let's go ahead and close that thing. Okay, and my layers here. I'm going to add in a new, down here this little yin-yang symbol is. Go ahead and click that. Add a solid color for the background. I'm going to pick black. Hit OK. This will be my background color. So I'll just do background color. Drag this to the bottom. This is going to be my UVs, the top layer. So layer 1. Just double click the word here. Call that UVs. I don't want to paint on my UVs. So I'm going to go ahead and just lock those by hitting the little lock here. And then I'm going to create a new layer. So go down to the little plus sign here, like that. Now add a layer. Some of the older versions of Photoshop might have a little page, but it should be like right there in between the bucket and the folder. I'm going to drag this down between the two. And this one's going to be the color layer for the chair. So I'm going to make a wooden chair. You guys can make any kind of chair that you like. I actually have a tutorial on how to make a good wood grain texture somewhere here in the description. I'm going to use kind of the same technique to make my wood grain, and then do whichever. You can really make this whatever color you want, but for the sake of this tutorial, we're going to make some wood. So the first thing is 2 different shades of brown. So I'm going to go up to my color here. I'm going to select the first color, and you'll notice that brown does not actually exist in the color bar here. Brown is actually orange, but darker. So I'm going to go ahead and grab orange, somewhere right around there. Find an orange, kind of in a dark medium-ish color, and that's a brownish. So I need a dark brown and a light brown. So I'll grab that one. And then for my second color, you can see you have 2 swatches here. For my second one, go ahead and open that one up. Same thing, I'll grab an orange, and I'll grab maybe a lighter brown. They look about the same. Let me go ahead and hit a little bit lighter. So what I'm going to do is make a wood grain pattern using Photoshop's filters here, and then make little boards to kind of go on these. Pretty easy. Let's go up to Filter, come down to Render, then go down to where it says Fibers. Click that. And you should get a pattern kind of like this. And you can randomize this, change the strength and the vibrance, however you want to do it. This is your creation, so however you want it. You can also hit randomize, and it'll give you a different pattern each time. Okay, so whatever one you like, hit OK. And it's going to fill this whole thing in with this wooden grain kind of texture. And that's looking pretty sharp. You know, nothing too fancy. But before we can actually put this to bed, we want to make sure that the grain is running in a way that makes sense. So if I pull up an image of boards, you can see that the grain, and grab this one, runs in a specific direction. Okay, this grain runs left to right from this board. On these, you can see they all run lengthwise. And the reason for that is when you're creating a board, the longer the fibers, the stronger the piece of wood. So that's why you'll see manufacturers, whenever they cut a board, they always cut it like along the grain as opposed to cutting it against the grain. So when you make the boards for your particular chair, you want to consider the long part of the board versus the short part of the board. So in our case, if I go down to Maya, so the board going this way, the grain is going to go long ways. This board going up and down, the grain's going to go up and down because that's where it's going to be the strongest. Same thing on the legs. The legs, the grain should probably go up and down. That's where it's going to be the strongest. And then on the chair seat, the grain should be going left to right because that's where it's going to be the strongest. Same thing on the front. And then on the side, technically, you would have the edge of a board, but we're going to kind of cheat and ignore that for the sake of the video, just because it would take more time to make those. But if it realistically it would be going this way, and you'd have separate boards here. Okay. Let's go back to Photoshop, and you can see all of our grain is kind of running in the same direction. Some of this is okay, some of it's not so much. So I'm going to look at what needs to be changed. The first is, let's turn our picture off by hitting the eyeball. So this long piece up and down, and these up and down are the legs, and these are the back braces, or the back pieces. So it going up and down is fine. These go side to side, so I have to change the direction that these are going, because this is all going up and down. This is the seat, and this seat is laid out where this is the front, and this is the bottom, right? This is the side. So I'm going to run the board this way. So left and right, left and right. These ones I can probably run up and down, although that really wouldn't make any sense if this is the same board here, you know. Probably just run this way. And then the feet won't really matter because I'm not going to see them that often. So what I'll do, and just to have a different pattern for each one of these, I'm going to take this grain pattern and go to my selection tool. I'm going to grab my little selector there, drag a selection box. Now I'm on the color portion, okay? I'm not on my UVs, I'm on my little color portion here. So this part I don't need. I'm going to go ahead and just hit delete. I cut that out. I also don't need this part right here. You can see that my UVs overlap into here. I need the grain to go the other way anyway, so it's going to grab in there. Just going to delete that out. And that's probably fine. You don't have to be too nitpicky. Like down in here, I don't need any of this midsection. And the pattern here looks pretty different between all of them, but if you really wanted a different pattern, you could isolate it and rotate whatever. So I like this pattern there and there. I'm going to make a new page. And on the new page, this is number 2, filter, render, fibers, hit OK. And I want these ones to go the other way. So I'm going to go up to Edit, go down to Transform, and then I'm going to go down to Rotate. Now you can do clockwise or counterclockwise. This one's up to you. We just want this to be going left and right. So I hit clockwise. And it's going to shift the whole picture, right? But I don't need the grain to be going left and right on these parts. I only want it on these parts. So what I'm going to do is cut away the part that I don't need. So selection tool, select this section right here, delete it. I'll select this section down here, delete that off, same dealio. Whatever else you want to kind of clear away. I'm going to clear some space in between here. It's okay. Some space into here is fine. Just trimming so I can get a bit of a layout for my stuff. Not too particular, it's okay. And let's take a look at how this is going to be in the editor. So let's go ahead and save this. So File, Save As. And we're going to change this from Simple Chair UVs. We're going to change this to Simple Chair Texture. We're going to save it as a Photoshop file. Hit Save. Let's go down into Maya. Let's add our color. So I'm going to grab the chair, rendering, grab the whatever color you want. Wood tends to have a little bit of reflection if it's been well taken care of, like you have like a varnish or whatever. It's going to be kind of shiny. If it's an old chair and the wood's kind of old without any like lacquer or varnish on it, it might be a flat color. Up to you. Pick whatever one you like. I'm going to do the flat one for now. I'm going to call this Simple Chair. And we already have a Simple Chair texture. So I'm going to call this Simple Chair, sure, I'm going to call it Color. Simple Chair Color. And then hit the checker box, File, Folder. I'm going to grab my Simple Chair texture, open it. And there it is applied to the chair. And you can see that we have the grain going this way. And we have the grain also going lengthwise on the board. There. And then here. And this makes sense here, right? Because we have these boards running this way. And then the grain would be this way. Going there. There and there. And we're going to do a little bit of tricking to kind of get this to look like separate boards. Okay. You can also see we have the UV lines drawn on, and that's because that's in our picture inside of Photoshop. So if I go back down to Photoshop, I got my UV lines. I can turn those off and resave it, and then those will disappear. So let's go ahead and make this look like there are separate boards on the seat. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go ahead and grab my selection tool that I have here. Let's go ahead and zoom in. If you hold Alt and just mouse wheel, you can zoom in. I'm going to zoom in right around here. And all I want to do is make some cutouts for where there's going to be spaces in the wood. Okay, so I'm going to just hold down with my selection tool here. Oops. Grab the picture that I want. Let's go ahead and name these. The bottom one here, if I poke the eyeball, that's this right side here. This is going to be, we'll call this legs texture. And this one's going to be seat. Okay. I'm going to go up on the seat here, grab my selection tool, make sure the seat's selected. I'm going to go ahead and just drag across about that much. That's good enough. I'm going to go ahead and hit delete. Scroll up a little bit, drag across, delete, and that'll probably be okay for that. And now I need a background color to kind of fill that in. So what I'm going to do, since I already have a background color, which is black, I'm going to pick a slightly darker background color that is not black, but is closer to my brown. So let me go ahead and just double click on my background color. And I'm going to take this little eyedropper. I'm going to grab this darker brown. And that's kind of close. Let me go a little bit darker. Okay. Probably good enough. I'm going to take it just a step darker, and then that's probably fine. Hit OK. Deselect by clicking off. We're going to select deselect. So now we have that. So if we save this, I'm going to go ahead and poke the UVs, turn those off real quick. File, save. Let's go back into Maya. If I select my chair, go to the material, right click, material attributes, poke the picture. You'll see now we have the chair, and I have these little cutouts for where the boards are. I didn't do the bottom, which I really should have done, so I have to go fix that. That's kind of neat. We're going to give this some depth and make it look a little fancier. Let's also add some granule like swirls to these, so it looks like they've we have some more wood kind of grainy stuff going on. Back in the Photoshop here, turn my UVs back on. So I need to have cuts along the bottom of this. So what I'm going to do is actually zoom in here This is going to be some guesswork because I don't actually know where these cuts are going to be. They're roughly right around the middle, as you can kind of see about there. I'm going to have to eyeball it to figure out exactly where these cuts are going to be for the bottom piece. Let's kind of go like so. Looks like it's a little bit too far. You can see the gap from this corner. Just going to take that down by hitting the arrow keys. Make sure I select the seat picture and delete that. I'm going to save it. Let's go back into Maya. I'll select it. Again, grab my material, poke the picture, and see if they line up. Oh, it's a pretty good guess right there. It's a little bit bigger than it needs to be. So it's one of those things you can fix in post. Let's go back. So I'm going to Control Z that. Roughly how big is that selection? I'm going to use this selection down here. So I'm going to select, and then I'm going to move the selection by clicking and dragging. Then I'm going to eyeball it again. You can, of course, you can be precise by moving this up, however you want to do it, but I'm going to do it just kind of like that. Again, I'll cut it, save it, poke it. Oof, I'm a little off. Alright, try it again, save it, poke it. I'm going the wrong way. Control Z that. Let's go up. Save it. Poke it. I gotta go back a couple pixels. Ah, there you go. Control Z. Again, arrow keys. Just kind of tap them back. Save it. It's pretty close. I'll go back one more like pixel or so. Save it. Poke it. Close enough for government work. I'll do the other side as well. So using the same selection, I'm just going to go ahead and drag that up, eyeball it, just kind of get the gap. This gap's a little bit narrower. Cut it, save it, poke it. Oh, it's real close. Control Z. I'll go back to, cut it, save it, poke it. Pretty close. I'll do 1, 2. It's kind of like going to the eye doctor. What's better? 1, 2. All right, good enough. Look at that. That's pretty close. So we got boards. Let's add the little swirls. Okay, I'll deselect, Control D to deselect. Now you might ask, how come we didn't cut all the way through? And the answer is we have feet here. We don't want to cut into those, and we don't want to. It's only going to pick up what's in the lines of the UVs anyway, so it's okay. So I'm going to take this picture. Grab the seat. Let's go into filter. Let's go down to liquify. It's going to bring us into here, and we have a bunch of tools over here on the liquify tab. If I just use like the smudge tool, which is what you're on by default, you can kind of nudge around and do stuff like this to kind of get that smearing effect that you kind of see with wood. So if you like look here, and you have those little smears and those little swirls, you can kind of get that in here. Okay. So kind of go crazy with this, but I'll show you what the tools are. We have Twirl. So if I grab Twirl, you have brush sizes over here. So size, if I dial that down, and if I use Twirl, if I hover my mouse and kind of hold it for a second, you see how it spins that? So you can get those really nice spirals that are in here. We also have a bloat and a pinch tool. So bloat, if I hover over a spot and hold it, it kind of widens it. So you have those little knots where it kind of gets wide. And then we have like pinch. If I grab the pinch tool, it does the opposite of that. Just adjust the brush a little bit. And you can see it kind of pulls the grain in. Okay, so this is where you get to kind of make some mixes and some flavors of your texture. So I'm just going to spice it up just a little bit by playing around with it. So this is one of the boards on here. I'm just going to grab some of that. I'm not going to be too particular. Things that I wouldn't do is I wouldn't mess up your edges here, like these. I wouldn't mess these up too much. Okay, just because if you go too far, it's going to make the gap too big. A little bit of messing up is okay, but not too crazy. Dial this back down just a little. So like on the edge of the boards, we have some bloats. And I'm just kind of playing with the pattern here. Giving some randomness. Grab my pinch tool, I'll pinch some areas, get some and just add a little swirl here and there. And all these little end caps. You do have the option to adjust density, pressure, and rate over here. Play around with these settings to get what you want. You can always reset them if you don't like what you have. Okay, when you have something you kind of like, just hit OK. Now, just be aware this is a destructive action, so once you do it, that's permanent. What I usually do is make a copy of it and then mess with it and whatever, which we didn't do, but live and learn. But here's that pattern. If I go ahead and save it, go back in. Poke it. So now we have something a little bit more natural looking for wood. And see what I mean? How I mess with the edges a little bit too much. So when you cut a board, you usually cut them straight, right? You don't really have a lot of warping unless it's really old and it's had some water damage or whatever. So that's one of those areas where I went too extreme on those edges, that clean cut. Kind of messed that up. But live and learn, you know? I'm going to do the same thing to the legs. So grab my legs. And just to show you how to make a copy of something. So let's say you want to have a backup just in case you mess it up. You can go ahead and take the piece you want to copy. So in this case, I'm copying the legs. Just hold down Alt and then drag it down, and it says legs copy. And this one I'll just turn off and have a backup. And if you're cautious about this one, you can Control Z and then make a copy and then continue on later. So with legs, let's go ahead and do filter. Go back into liquify, filter gallery, liquify. And of course, make your adjustments however you like. I'm not going to spend too much time here. Naturally, the longer you spend doing this and kind of perfecting your craft, the better it's going to look. But for the sake of time, I'm going to move a little quick. Okay, I call that good for now. Hit OK. So we have those two different grain patterns. I'm going to get rid of my copy here. That's fine. I don't need that for now. Got my seat, my legs, got that. I'll go ahead and save. Okay. Let's go back down to Maya. Let's double check our work. There we go. There's the wood pattern of our chair. Pretty nicely done, I should say. If I don't say so myself. Not bad for like an hour's worth of work, right? Okay, so we have this. One last thing I want to do to it to make it really, really pop, and that is to add in a normal map. So it's going to make the grain look like it's really there. So I'm going to go back into Photoshop here, and we have all of our stuff. I have my UVs kind of turned off. I got my background color. I'm going to go ahead and grab all this. So select the UVs, go down to the color, and just press Shift. So I'm going to grab the top one, hold Shift, grab the bottom one, click it. It's going to grab all. Go down to the little folder here. This is a group. Click that. And I just call this Diffuse, D-I-F-F-U-S-E. So that's our Diffuse group. I'm going to hold down Alt, drag the group down, let it go. Makes a copy. I'm going to turn the top one off. Let's go ahead and save it in case it crashes. On the copy, I'm going to right-click it. I'm going to merge the group. This is going to create a single picture. Everything's on one picture now. And then I'm going to take this picture and go ahead and name this normal. Okay. Take my normal and I go up to filter, go down to 3D, and then generate. You have an option of generating the normal map or the bump map. I'm going to do a normal map just because it's going to be quicker. Do normal. It's going to generate. Okay, so this is the normal map being generated here. And you have the option, of course, to adjust this however you like. What I'm going to do, I'm going to move this off. It's going to change this from a sphere right here from object. I'm going to change it down to a cube. The level of detail, I'm going to change this down. Make this 80%. Doesn't need to be extraordinarily high. I'm going to increase the blur factor to about 5. So the reason you do a little bit of a blur is it softens the edges so it's not as jagged. If you want to get really jagged, you just drop the blur down. But I think 80% and that should be fine. Again, you're welcome to experiment, but this is a good ballpark, especially for what we're doing. And then I'll hit OK. Okay. I'm going to take my normal, file, save as. I'm going to change this from a Photoshop file down to a Targa. Change the texture. I'm going to go underscore and call this normal. Save. 24-bit is fine. And then for my diffuse, just so I have it in Unreal, I'll just make this out so it's a single file. So grab that, file, save as. I'll change this to a target type and also name this one diffuse. So underscore DIFFUSE. And 24-bit. So the reason why I save both those out as separate files is the targas are a little bit lighter than the raw Photoshop file. So if you're using it for like your game in Unreal, you don't want to have the raw Photoshop file. That's going to take up more memory. Jump back into Maya here, grab my chair, right click, go back to our material attributes, go over to bump mapping, hit the little eyeball here, grab your file. It's going to bring you to this menu where it says value, hit the little arrow, and then grab your folder. And I'm going to grab the normal, open it. Now this is going to be way too extreme. We don't need to be that high. I'm going to come down from sRGB, I'm going to do raw. And then the, let's come up to here where it says file 3. I'm going to hit the little arrow. I'm going to change it from bump to object space normal. I'm going to drag the depth quality down. Let's do maybe, that's probably fine. But check that out. We have some depth on the chair. Let's try tangent space and see what adjustment we get. Tangent space not too bad. So there is our chair with the normal map applied. You'll notice you can't adjust the bump value because that's being driven by our picture. So, but you can adjust the bump depth. But there you have it. There is our basic chair already made. Go ahead and save it here. And the next one we're going to drag it into Unreal, and I'll show you how to set that up. Okay? Save it here, and I shall see you in the next one. Hey guys, thanks for checking out my channel. Misty and I both thank you. If you've enjoyed that video you just watched, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, I do have official merch and a Patreon somewhere in the link down below. Updates for things that are coming along. Of course, we are at 1,000 subscribers, and that is awesome. We're still doing voting for what project I'm going to work on next, like what big project I'm going to work on next. So make sure you head over there and do that. Also, keep your eye out for the devlogs for Blockout and Rocket Flip. Those are 2 games that are coming out for Lame Duck Studios, officially released and all that good stuff. And if you guys want to see how those are being put together and the process that I've been going through, stay tuned for that. You'll be seeing those coming up here soon. And don't forget that I create new content on Sundays and I release content on Wednesdays. So stay tuned, and I shall see you next time.